The New York Giants get surprising value in my 7-round Giants only mock draft. That's coming your way next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credentialed member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of my written work. And as always, a big welcome on in to my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And on today's show, I promised you I would do it. It's here, my New York Giants 7-round mock draft. All right, I spent quite a bit of time on this. I feel pretty good about most of the picks I was able to make. Some of them I'm like kind of iffy, but I'm going to go through it. We're going to talk about the impact players. We're going to talk about the mid-round gems that can potentially fill in some of the depth spots. And then we'll talk about obviously some of the late draft developmental types that I think are intriguing. So that's our plan for today. Now, before I get into the mock draft, a couple of just quick notes. I use Pro Football Focus's mock draft simulator. So basically, you know, I set the settings to where I'm making the picks and not necessarily following along with the needs, because you really shouldn't draft for needs. But in some cases, I think teams do it if the value is there. And spoiler alert, my entire mock draft was graded as a B+ by Pro Football Focus. So how did I get to that grade? Basically, it was a report card. I think that, well, I don't know if my parents would be proud of this report card, but it's not bad considering I got a B+ overall. But we'll go into it. You guys let me know what you think by commenting in the video, the comments below the video, or if you're listening to our audio platforms, drop me an email. My contact information is in the show notes. All right, let's get into it. Round 1, pick number 3. Travis Hunter was off the board. Cam Ward was off the board. Where did I go with pick number 3? I went with Abdul Carter. Penn State, 6'3", 252 pounds. Now you're saying to yourself, oh boy, here we go. Why not Shedeur Sanders? Guys, I get the feeling just by, the more draft analysis I read, the more I talk to people, I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong here, but I don't know if Sanders is going to be an option for the Giants at 3. I really am starting to doubt that. So I went with Abdul Carter. Why Abdul Carter? For which, by the way, I got an A grade on. The Giants defense continues to need help, and especially that young defensive secondary. Even though that young defensive secondary has been upgraded, you need for the guys up front to do their part. So, in Abdul Carter, you're getting a guy whose speed is elite, who, for those of you who are bemoaning the fact that the Giants passed on Micah Parsons a few years ago, this could potentially be a mulligan. Okay, Carter, he has that foot issue that was discovered at the combine, but his pro day is coming up. I think it's the 28th for his pro day. So supposedly that foot issue will no longer be a problem. At least that's what we're hoping. Everybody's hoping for a young man's sake. All right, so let's take a look at some of the Giants, what they did last year and why Carter would be such a good fit. So last year, the Giants managed to pressure the quarterback 34.2% of the time, 15th in the NFL. But they did have a good sack rate. They converted 7.8% of those pressures into sacks, which was the 3rd best in the NFL. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if you're going to be pressuring the quarterback a lot, you want to convert some of those pressures into more sacks. And while the Giants didn't exactly, rank at the bottom of the NFL in sacks. And while defensive coordinators will tell you, well, sacks are great, but they're not the be all end all, which is true. It's nice to be able to convert some more of those pressures into sacks. And I just felt like, over the years, the Giants haven't done enough of that. So adding a guy like Carter to a pass rush package that potentially has Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Chauncey Golston. Good luck to the opposing offense, in stopping those guys. That would be quite a handful for anybody to handle. And like I said, if they can disrupt the passer, that now hopefully puts the improved young defensive secondary, in a better position to maybe cause a turnover. All right. So I just felt that Abdul Carter made the most sense for the Giants there. And if I'm being honest with you, I didn't even think twice about it. So, I also think, with the quarterback, which I'll get to a little later on in this mock draft, spoiler alert, the Giants, if they land a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy, that kind of, that's what I was kind of going off of. But overall, folks, if I'm being honest, Carter to me was the best value in that spot. All right, round 2, pick number 34. This one might surprise you because it kind of surprised me that this guy was there. And I looked and I said, you know what? He makes too much sense. I went with North Dakota State offensive lineman Gray Zabel, 6'6", 305 pounds. Got an A for that particular pick. Now, why Gray Zabel? Folks, stop me if you've heard this before, but the Giants' offensive line needs additional talent. They brought back at the guard spot after, considering signing a guard only to be put off by the prices. They brought back Greg Van Roten and Aaron Stinney. They've got Jake Kubas, who's going to compete for a spot. Evan Neal is going to see if he can't salvage his career by cross-training at guard. But folks, where is the depth at that position? All right, the long-term depth. One of the things I keep screaming about when it comes to the Giants' offensive line is that they don't have any solid young depth in the hopper, getting those guys ready so that if there is an injury or if at the end of a season the guy moves on, they have a replacement ready to step in. That needs to change. I can't stress that enough. I think that's going to change this year. All right. I keep talking about Chris Snee, who is helping out with the scouting of offensive linemen. I have all the confidence in the world. Chris Snee is going to help this team do better with drafting offensive line talent, because under Joe Shane so far, they really haven't done a good job. I mean, look, I think they've drafted like 4 premium picks at offensive line, and of them, one is okay, and that's John Michael Schmitz, and even he has a lot to still show. So Gray Zabel, let's talk about what I liked about him. So he's got experience playing all 5 spots, but he projects as an interior offensive lineman at the NFL level. Hello, guard, right? He's a good fit for a zone blocking team, which the Giants did half of their runs last season. He and he's a good, I guess you could call him a road grader. All right. So think of this, folks. The Giants last year, according to NFL Pro, faced a stack box 20% of the time, which is 17th in the NFL. How nice would it be if they could get road graders who could get up there into that second level and break open those stack boxes and give the running backs more room to operate? The run game to me last year, just based on how the offensive line performed and was built, it was almost like it took a back seat, and that needs to change, I think. So a guy like Gray Zabel, I think, has the talent to step in. I don't know if he would necessarily be a week 1 starter, but I just like a lot of his intangibles. I like the flexibility. You could kick him out to tackle if you want. I don't think that would be his best position, but he does have that flexibility, that position flexibility that teams tend to like. All right, coming up next, we're going to roll into round 3 and round 4. So we're going to start to look at mid-round gems. That's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So go on, visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. This is the Locked On Giants podcast. And coming up on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Giants, Coach Gene Clemens will join me. We'll get some of his takes on these free agent acquisitions that the Giants have made. We'll talk about the draft. Obviously, pro days are going on right now. As I record this on Monday, it is Miami's pro day. So Cam Ward, you're on National Spotlight. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more here on the Locked On Giants podcast. All right, let's get back to our mock draft. We are now up to round 3, where the Giants have 2 picks in the 3rd round, thanks to a comp pick that they received, which will be at pick number 99. But first, pick number 65. Folks, I'm not going to lie here. This one was tough for me because normally I believe in the best available. And this one, I'm not going to lie, I kind of went with need over best available, which obviously if I were a GM, which I'll never be, and I don't want to be, quite honestly, that would get me fired. So I'm going to tell you who I picked at 3 and who I probably should have picked at 3 and won. All right, so pick number 65. I went with quarterback Jackson Dart, 6'2", 225, out of Ole Miss. My grade from Pro Football Focus, by the way, a D+. That was my worst grade of this mock draft. Now, look, right now, the Giants have Jameis Winston. He's going to be, depending on what happens in the next few weeks, he's going to be the week 1 starter. If the Giants sign Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, one of those guys will be the week 1 starter. All right. That has always been the Giants' plan, and that is to have a veteran carry him through the season so that if they do indeed draft a rookie, and I do think they will pick up a rookie quarterback at some point, that rookie can sit and acclimate because there's always something that the kid can work on. And you want to make sure that the quarterback is equipped and ready to go before you throw him out there. You don't want to rush him out there. You also want to make sure that his supporting cast is strong enough so that his life is made a little easier. All right, so why Jackson Dart, and who did I almost pick instead of him? Jackson Dart has above average mobility, is not afraid to step up in the pocket. He has a decent enough arm, but there are questions I would have about him. For example, his footwork is inconsistent. His follow-through is all over the map. And he's a system quarterback. So, who, by the way, happens to be primarily a one-read quarterback. We just got done with Daniel Jones, who was primarily a one-read quarterback. Now, again, that doesn't mean that what Jackson Dart was in college is what he's going to necessarily be in the NFL. So I don't hate the idea of the Giants taking him and developing him, because if they do so on day 3 and he doesn't work out, there is next year to get you a quarterback from a deeper class. And quite honestly, I say take the quarterback, don't be cute. In this instance, the more I learn about these quarterbacks, the more I'm like, maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea if the Giants punted the decision to next year. But I know they're not going to. They can't. They just can't. Not if they, want to save jobs. So now let me tell you who I would have taken or almost took at this particular spot, 65. I almost took Demetrius Knight, linebacker, 6'2", 235 out of South Carolina, who, by the way, has a pro comparison to Bobby Okereke. So what did I like about Knight? He has a 76 career coverage grade, which is pretty good. He plays with instincts. He rarely gets caught up in the wash. Only 27 missed tackles over his career and 67 stops. You can't teach instincts, ladies and gentlemen. And, look, you look at the Giants linebacker situation, and on the surface you say, yeah, it's not that big of a glaring need. Micah McFadden's in the final year of his deal, all right, this year. Bobby Okereke is collecting the last of his guaranteed money, I believe, this year. Behind them, they have Darius Mawaso, who's a promising young player, and Deontay Johnson, who we still need to see a little bit more from. So yeah, this position could quickly become a need down the line. Because remember, when you draft, you're not just drafting for the current year, you're drafting for down the line. So that's why I almost went with Knight, Demetrius Knight, in that spot. But I didn't. Had I gone with him, by the way, I probably would have gotten a higher grade on that particular pick, but I didn't. All right, pick number 99 in the third round. I went with interior defensive lineman Dion Walker, 6'7", 344 pounds, out of Kentucky. Got a B grade for that one. Walker, what did I like about him? He has the length to play at 3-4 DE. He has a quick first step. The Giants, in my opinion, need a solid, young 3-tech next to Dexter Lawrence. They haven't really had that since Leonard Williams was here. I know they added guys to the mix, to that defensive line mix, to create a rotation. I would like to see them get a young defensive lineman. And this is a deep class, by the way. So guys that maybe fall to the second or the third or the fourth round, maybe in other years might have gone higher. So Dion Walker, to me, was the guy that I had my eye on, and a guy that I think, could be a nice fit for the Giants defense. So he is my second of third round picks, pick number 99 overall. All right, we'll take a quick break. When I come back, I'll give you my day 3 picks. So don't go anywhere. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. We are doing my 7th-round New York Giants mock draft. This is probably the first of 2 that I will do on the show. I'll probably do another one as we get closer to the draft, once some more things settle down and fall into place. So, but I figured, look, I promised I would do one of these, and here it is. And I'm sure some of you are sitting there groaning. Some of you are probably sitting there saying, great draft. That's what makes the world go around, different opinions. So, all right, let's get into the day 3 picks, starting with round 4. Pick number 105. My selection, cornerback Dorian Strong out of Virginia Tech, 6'1", 185 pounds, got an A- grade for that pick. Now, I know they just signed Paulson Adebo. They had Deontay Banks. They have Cordell Flott, who, by the way, is in the final year of his rookie deal. They have Trey Hawkins, who is still on a rookie deal. I get all that. But you can never have too many cornerbacks. And in Dorian Strong, you have a guy who, again, it's 6'1", 185, good height and length. He is smart and competitive, has experience excelling in a zone scheme, which is primarily what the Giants play. He has a coverage rating, a career coverage rating, a 2024 coverage rating, 61.6, which is pretty good. And for his career, he has never exceeded 74.4 as a coverage rating. He's primarily an outside cornerback, so he would be a depth piece. He also has contributed on special teams, okay? And he has also allowed just 2 touchdowns over the last 3 years of his career winning coverage. Really a good value pick, I think, at that spot. So, again, you can never have too many cornerbacks if you're a football team. We saw it last year when guys were getting banged up, and it's just such an important position to really stock up on. All right. Now let's go to round five. Round five, pick number 154. I went with running back Khalil Mullings, 6'2", 233 out of Michigan. All right. Big boy. All right. A big fella. So this is a guy who is a converted linebacker. All right. He played linebacker up until I think 2023 when he converted to running back. So he's still relatively new to the position. But I always am intrigued by these guys who switch positions, switch from the defensive side to the offensive side, because I always feel like it gives them some sort of advantage when they're, playing their angles and the runs and all their stuff. So, all right, let's talk about Mullins a little bit more. He has special teams experience, obviously new to the position. He started full-time in 2024. He would be a really good pass blocker, I think. We'll talk about the Giants' depth in a second at the running back spot, but the one area where Mullings maybe needs a little bit more refinement in his game is as a receiver coming out of the backfield. And that's something they can work on. So we look at the Giants' running back situation, which right now is not horrible. All right. Tyrone Tracy Jr. is RB1. Devin Singletary is probably going to be RB2. But Singletary this year, I believe this is the last year he's collecting guaranteed money. So there is no guarantee he will be here beyond this year. Then you have Eric Gray and Dante Miller, both of whom have primarily special teams guys. So my thinking here with this particular pick, get a running back in here, but start developing him. Start refining his pass blocking. Start, getting him some reps as a practice reps as a receiver out of the backfield, get him ready so that come next year, he's ready to step in potentially as an RB2 if he can make the progress. I know it's a bit of a stretch right now, given where he's at, but with solid development, it's possible. All right. So, again, when I make these picks, I don't only think of this year. I'm thinking of next year as well. You have to kind of think down the line. So that's why I went with that pick. All right. Now, round 6, the Giants don't have any picks because they had traded them away. Let's go to round 7, where the Giants have 2 picks. And quite honestly, I am hoping that they trade both these picks away when the real draft happens. I don't know. I just got spoiled not having to sit through a 7th round of the draft. But I don't think the Giants will trade both of them away. Maybe one, but I don't think they'll trade both. But anyhow, round 7, 219. Now, I got to confess, this pick, I'm not wild about. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I felt it was the best available, the best value on the board at the time. I got a C grade for this one. I picked Syracuse tight end Oronde Gadsden II. 6'5", 236 pounds. What did I like about him? He is a size mismatch as a potential big slot receiver. He has a decent football pedigree. His father had played for the Miami Dolphins back in the day. He has a big catch radius and, can high point the ball. Where he currently lacks, I think, in his game is he needs to get a little bit more physical, and he's not the most athletic. Now, you look at the Giants' tight end situation as it stands. All right. Theo Johnson's tight end 1. Right now, Daniel Bellinger is tight end 2, but Daniel Bellinger is in the final year of his deal. Will he be back after this year? I don't know. That's anybody's guess. They just added Chris Manhertz on another 1-year deal. Manhertz is basically their blocker. And they want to find out what they have from Greg Dulcet, assuming Dulcet can stay healthy. So on the surface, it looks like, they don't need another tight end. But again, you have to start thinking ahead. And even if you put, a guy like Gadsden on your practice squad to develop him, get him ready. Because again, one area this team has not done a good job of, in my opinion, is having young players in waiting in the wings for when openings pop up. These guys either prove to be not ready or just not able to handle the job. So that was kind of, a theme of this draft. All right. Last but not least, round 7, pick number 246, wide receiver Theo Weiss Jr., 6'2", 192 out of Missouri. Got a C+ on that grade. What do I like about Weiss Jr.? He's a skyscraper, vertical threat. He can outmuscle guys for the ball. He has excellent ball tracking abilities, and he can high point the ball like no one's business. He also brings special teams values. But here's a question. Where would he fit in? Well, obviously, special teams. All right. The Giants are set at receiver right now with Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson are their top 3. Who's number 4? Is it going to be Jalen Hyatt? I don't know. Jalen Hyatt, unfortunately, regressed last year in terms of his target and everything. So I really don't know what his future is with this team. And then if you notice, one of the things the Giants have done in free agency this offseason, they've added a bunch of taller guys. Zach Pascal is one. They've gotten more for height because they don't have, in my opinion, they didn't have enough taller guys. So Weiss is a guy, obviously 6'2", he's a tall guy. You've got to mix it up. So, would he necessarily make the team if he were drafted? I don't know. Obviously, we'd have to go through training camp and kind of see the injury situation and how these guys adapt. But I just felt, to round off this draft, it made sense to add a wide receiver. And, Weiss just happened to be the best available on the board. There was no second guessing and saying, oh, maybe I should go with this guy as opposed to this guy. So I don't hate that pick. And not just because I made it, but I think there's value to that pick, especially with special teams. All right. So to recap, ladies and gentlemen, round 1, Abdul Carter, Penn State edge. Round 2, offensive lineman, Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. Round 3, number 65, Jackson Dart, quarterback, Ole Miss. Round 3, number 99, interior defensive lineman, Deion Walker, Kentucky. Round 4, cornerback, Dorian Strong, Virginia Tech. Round 5, running back, Khalil Mullins, Michigan. Round 7, 219, tight end, Oronde Grand, Syracuse. Round 7, number 246, wide receiver, Theo Weiss Jr. That is my mock draft. Again, I earned a B+ from Pro Football Focus on their simulator. Let me know what you think. I'm curious to hear what you think. Everybody's going to have different opinions, I'm sure, but it was a fun exercise. It was a long exercise because I really did spend a lot of time doing research and checking out film and stats and trying to put it all together to find little nuggets for you on this, but let me know what you think. I'm curious. So anyway, folks, that's going to do it for today's Locked On Giants podcast. Now, don't forget, check out Locked On NFL Draft, hosted by Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. If you want all the latest on the NFL Draft prospect rankings, pro day observations, and so forth, those are the guys you want to check out. Locked On NFL Draft is available wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Giant fans, I'll be back tomorrow with an all-new episode. Coach Gene Clemens will join me, and I hope you will as well. So have a great one, everybody.